let's talk about this. So today I'm just kind of wanted to start the year off with talking about how to track users and some of the settings. So this may feel kind of basic for you, but if you have any questions, your questions will be helpful to other people that watch the video later. So let me know as we go. Get in here. So our agenda, what we're going to talk about is just like adding and managing users. So basic things like adding a person record, how to establish that they have a login and the kind of settings that they have. We'll talk about the security center and the links that are on the sidebar, which are the staff and user reports, so that you can kind of look at that on occasion to make sure that our billing matches up. You could also share those reports with your accountant so that they can review that the invoices match that. And it'll also be a spot that you go and check for disabled users, things like, or not disabled users, but rather users who haven't logged in a while. And just kind of make sure that people are logging into the site. And then there is an auto action that I'll show you how to set up that will allow you to get a notification if someone hasn't logged in a while, so that you could disable them. May not be as relevant for you for like an organization under 10 employees, something like that. But for agencies that have 200, they probably don't even know everybody that works or has access to the system. So when somebody doesn't log in a while, they can get a notification. And, you know, I'll set it up for like a month or 2 months, but you might set it up for like the last 8 days. And that might be a trigger for you to say, do we really need this person to have access right now? Think about it like for contract workers. If you guys happen to work with people that work, maybe they do like 1 or 2 home studies in a specific region, but then you maintain them having access to your database, but they're not in it for several months, you might consider disabling them. And that'll be up to you, how you want to manage that. So the basic user settings that are required in SAM for a person to have access to the database is that they need a person record in the system. I do like to label person records with things like employee staff, attaching them to your organization, just so that you have that tracking and documentation about the people that work there. You will need to give them login access, which we'll show you. And then there are some email account credentials and settings that need to be set up so that they can send and receive emails, or they can send emails out of the system, and then their emails can be imported if that's a selection that you want them to have. SAM admins are going to be responsible for adding all these new people to the site. So new clients generally get 1 or 2 logins, kind of the people that have an established relationship with the sales team, or who is added in a new contact form. But other users are going to be added by your agency. You will also set up different variations to permissions. So new sites are set up with view only to everything. You can view and edit everything, or you can be a full admin. So if there are variations, like you want someone just to see families and have no access to birth mother information, you would have to set those variations up. And then change the login that a person has. So instead of giving them just view and edit, they would have this variation permission. You would also reset passwords for people. Sometimes people forget what their password is. And so instead of contacting our team for that, because we may not actually have an established relationship with that person, they should know who the SAM admin is for your organization, and they should contact that SAM admin. And then finally, you will also disable users. And these are responsibilities for the SAM admin or the full admin, just around users, right? There are obviously a lot of other responsibilities that a person with that role has that for administering the database. So let's log in, and what we'll do from here is just add a person to the site so that you see how to do that. There are a couple links, and then we'll give them some permissions. So there's an add person link generally on your homepage. This is where sites will vary a little bit, but by default, it'll be on the homepage, and then also under the person tab, you can get to the same form. So this is where it always gets me as creating names. I'm going to do a Kristen Smith. Actually, I love this artist, and he's a Smythe. Okay, and we'll do a little bit from our Australia people. Person types. This is where I talked about a few minutes ago, kind of labeling this person as an employee or staff, so that you can separate these persons from other types of people that might have roles on your client records, but are not team members for you. So I like to just label them this. This does not give them permissions. It just is a way to separate that person. The other thing that I like to add for sure is a work email. So I'm going to do a Kristen test at inreachsolutions.com. And that's really all that you need. I guess the one last thing, now that I'm seeing it right here, is connecting them to an organization record. And so you should have an organization record for your agency. I will connect them to InReach Solutions. And that will again give between the main organization and the person types kind of an establishment for how this person record relates to other records in the system and why you'd even have this person record. And so just kind of giving some basic information instead of leaving it empty. When this is saved, as always, after you save an add form, you're taken to the cover page. And for full admins, on the sidebar, you'll see this link that says edit login and permissions. And this is how you'll establish that the person can log into your site. When we get here, there's a check mark to login enabled, and then some items open up that you need to complete to give this person actual access to the site. So you determine their permission type. There's, I guess they are sorted alphabetically, and there's different variations to the full admin, the view and edit, and the view only that come by default. So you can choose what you want this person to have. You can also set them up with a report menu, and these are things that are additional roles that the full admin would do, is set up different report menus for people. This is helpful for new users to your site to give them kind of a base level of reports. But as soon as they modify that, they'll have a different custom menu. So I just kind of like to give people that are base like case worker reports that'll talk about placements that have happened and probably checklists and kind of basic things that go on. You will then establish a login, a username, and a password for these folks. I like to do kind of their first initial last name. You can come up with any variation. The only rule for the username is it must be 6 characters. And I don't believe that it's case sensitive. Password is going to be case sensitive, and you'll want to give them, it's not the same. You will want to give them something that they are going to go in and immediately change. So it's going to be a temporary password and then really provide them with some instructions, which is something that you could do from SAM, but provide them instructions for how to go and change their password, because you would assume that adding a new user, this is their first then access into the site. Okay. The other thing here is then time zone is just establishing that. And so when they add communication records where the date and time are displayed, it'll show their current time zone time in case there's any overlap in where your headquarters is and where this person is residing. Okay, and when you save, that's it. So now this person has access to the site. My password manager is asking if I want to save it. I'm not going to, but a good thing to do would be to log out and double check that you can log in with that, right? It'll save you an extra step of having, any inconsistency if the password doesn't work. Something to note is, right, like I gave this person view and edit. As a full admin, I have different visibility to different links and things than the user does. So kind of being aware as a full admin of what your user can view and see and what they can do is helpful for you, because it'll be helpful for them because they will see things a little bit differently than you do. And I notice off the bat is like I have very little settings. And when I access settings as this user, I have very little visibility. So just kind of being aware of what they can see. This is going to be true for all users that aren't full admins. Full admins have a very different, way more robust settings options for manipulating and configuring the system than do users. As far as what the user needs to do to go in and change their password, they can click settings and click change username and password. And then they would go in and put in that temporary password here. They'll put in the temporary password that you've given them and then create a new one for them, right? And then they will change their password. All right, so I'm going to log out here and I'm going to log back in as myself as a full admin, because now as a full admin, I have access to the security center, which is the next thing that I want to talk about. And so this is a spot that just kind of combines all your users with enabled logins and links that relate to that login and their access or like what what all users have access through activity tracking, or what all users have modified through modification history. So there's a lot of reports. It also has reports on here for how our systems are tracking what users have logins and what functions those users have. So we'll look at those. And then some different kind of settings that relate to the decryption password, and also, let me look what's behind here. I kind of forget. Oh, the session timeout. That's the main thing that we'll talk about here. If you have any public forms that have cross submit, where you're actually not using a SAM public form, and instead you're using a form from a different site that talks to SAM, this is what the cross submit functionality is at this point. And excuse me, bear with me, guys. I have this cough that doesn't want to stop, and I need to. Excuse me. Okay, so let me jump back here. Now let me go here just to make sure, since I spend ample time in setting these up, make sure that I've got what I want to talk about here. So back in the security center, it's true. We're going to talk about users with the login access, all the reports, the links that we'll talk about, etc. So let's go do that. Okay, so back in Security Center, all users with enabled logins. Something to note is our team at InReach Solutions is included in your list of people. I am working on getting those people, our team, to be separated. So you'll still know who is there, but that's not quite out yet. So you will see ours. However, we've got settings in the background that our team is not part of your charges for using the system. So you won't need to worry about that. And if you ever notice or think that that is happening, I definitely want you to let me know that. So right here on this form, user last login date, you can see where they logged in, what IP address, what kind of permission type they have, and what browser. And these things are important just to for us to know where people are coming from. And, it's always interesting for us to know, because browsers have different settings and different code behind how they function. Sometimes the system or the browser, specific browser, may not be working in tandem together as they should. So it's helpful to see what browser people are coming from. They should always really be at the most current browser version. And so you can see that really Dimitri's system hasn't, at least back in 2019, hasn't updated here to the, I guess, what is 78, okay? Or 79 even. It looks like Chrome is constantly updating, right? As we know, of course, they are. Let's see. You can access the person records through this person link, and that's just going to take you right to the person record that we left a minute ago. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but really, I mean, I guess what I would look at is like, if somebody never logged in, do they need to maintain access? That's going to be up to you. It totally is determined by you. If you want to change their access, and we're going to let Fonz go, we will go and edit the login permissions and just disable. And that's it. It's really simple to disable somebody from the site. And in my opinion, right here, as far as security goes, less is more for this. Really making sure that people only have access that need to have access due to the nature of the information that's stored in SAM. All right, so let's talk about some of the settings. Permissions is going to take you to all the different permission types, and we don't really have time today to talk about how to create a new permission type, but there are guides on that. But this gives you a list of all the different permission types in the system. If you click on the permission, you can see what types of access these users with this permission type will have. Be able to see. You can obviously click edit here and create different variations from it. You can edit filters to change it from Minnesota. Maybe they also now want to see Wisconsin or what other states. Sorry, I'm not a Midwest girl, but whatever states are up there right next to it. Anyways, okay, let's get back to the Security Center. Modification history is going to be a list of every change, almost every change that happens to the system. It's pretty thorough. We always find a little this or a little that it's not tracking on, but that's more in administration. But even in that, we're doing more and more tracking. So if you update a record, if you delete something, if you're formatting a form, all of that's changed. It tells you, and it's shown in a report. They can be pretty heavy, right? So I don't know if Heather's online from Madison. She's been using SAM for years and years. So her modification report's going to be a lot heavier than this. It might take a little bit of time to pull up all the data. But I believe that you can create variations to the modification to see like what was done in the last month, what was done by a specific user. You should be able to sort and report on it in different ways like you can other reports. Activity tracking. The next one down is going to be specific to what links has that person clicked through. So where are they going? Where are they, and I think, does it tell me? Yeah, it does tell me where I came from. So, and these are all links that you could get right there to see that information. So who was doing it? What's kind of like the general page name? And what are they clicking as they move through? Okay. Let's go back here. And then the medical access, this one is filtered on specifically the forms that are labeled as medical forms. So this primarily, I think, relates to child information. And so any access that people have had into that information, it just kind of, again, like narrows it. This information will be in that modification history report too. This just targets it. So let's talk about these reports. This is how you can verify the users that you have and month over month, kind of like your billing for SAM. So every month, you're going to, at the onset of the month, you'll get a new billing period name. Shows when it's calculated on is going to be the day that billing is actually done. So no, it's not February 1st yet, but that's the day that SAM will calculate the final billing for that month. So you'll want to make sure that your users are, the users that you want enabled are enabled or disabled by the end of the month, every month. Tells you the start and end date of that month. And then it starts to tell us whether or not email importing is enabled for the organization, for your agency in full, and if the donor module is enabled. And then it gives a count of different different permission types, how many people have those accesses. So for view only, it says read only, but it's for view only records. Users that have read and write, these should not be the same. It's kind of interesting here that this says read only 8, this says 24, and then this also says 24. Honestly, a little bit confused, and I will follow back up with you guys on this because I would almost expect this to say whatever 24 plus 8 is 32, right? 32 right here. And so I need to double check why it's not, because I think that this should really be either decreased by 8 or this should be increased by 8. The count of admins, and it may be that our demo site is not exactly in tune with what's real. So sometimes the demo site's not updated to keep things as consistent as possible for it. And then that I'll double check with you guys. The count of all users, this should show us everybody that's got access, the total count of everybody, which should match on the Security Center screen, the top number of people that are here. However, this doesn't give us a count, so it's a little difficult to verify without counting one by one. So I'm making some mental notes of how to, improvements for this. The count of admins are going to be those users with the full admin permission. And the full admin permission, just FYI, is not something that you can change. That user or users with that access have a visibility to everything in the site. So there's no filtering and a little bit less of this or that. So this will do the count. Just so you know, 3 is an excellent number of admins, right? You don't want too many cooks in the kitchen. If you have more, there's an additional charge for additional charge per month per user that has full admin access. In some cases, it makes a lot of sense. And in other cases, we just need to adjust the permissions. And then the count of email import users. So email importing is a feature that's a little additional cost each month, and that feature is turned on and off for different users. And so you can change those. Form security settings, I kind of went into this, and this is just 100, like this is when somebody logs in, when do you want the system to log them out if they have not been active and actively moving through the system or modifying things? Honestly, 120 minutes is kind of way too long, I think. I think 15 minutes is a good time period. However, if somebody writes narrative on a regular basis and that's going in and people are hanging out on forums for a really long time, you might need to up level that time period to allow them some opportunity to get that done. I totally skipped over these, and let me jump back. This is going to be the current per month user, like this user software usage monthly on the current month. This is showing all users that have access to the system and all the different months that they have had access. And actually, yeah, this is all users that have had access to the system and the different months that they've had access. So like this person no longer has access, stopped in August of 2018, or they only had access in August 2018. Where Fonz, who I just disabled, has had access all of these months. And you can kind of verify, did they have a login? What was their permission type? Are they an admin? Did they have email importing? You can also see their last login date here. And this is a date that I want to stay at the top of mind, because that's what we're going to use for our auto action to set up. The last thing that as a full admin that I really want to focus on here is going to be this decryption password. And this is a password that will allow you to see the value of encrypted fields. So it shouldn't be given out kind of willy-nilly. It's generally on social security numbers and important identification numbers that might be tracked in the system. And you'll need the decryption password to redisplay that information. So it's definitely a choice too, whether or not you actually want to keep that information in the system. Sometimes it's really great for reference and not necessarily great for data entry. So that's up to your team and the policies that you guys set in place. Let's see. So let's talk about the auto action. And again, I'm going to be really considering this last login date time, because what I want to set up is an auto action that notifies the full admin that this user hasn't logged in some time period. So under settings, what we're going to need are two things. We're going to need a template because we need to tell the full admin what the purpose of this email is and who is established, things like who's it being triggered on. And then an auto action is actually what's going to send the message. So let's set this up. I'm going to start with a template. I'm going to create a new template and full admin, disable user. And I'll just, okay. Control Enter kind of gets you moving forward. I always like to kind of share that in case you don't know that hot tip yet. Hot key tip. This is going to be based around the person record. And we're going to use not the user configure, the user stats. It doesn't need to be in results. That's not super necessary right here, but we just want to pull that like their last login date was. Okay. And then I'm going to write in here, insert a field, choose the person, pull their full name, has not logged in since, and insert from the user stat table, user last login date time. You may want, now I like when you're adding notifications to a full admin, tell them what they're supposed to do next. And honestly, this is, I say just to a full admin and actually to your team in general. It's great to notify them of something happened, but a great way to kind of continue the process and give them the resources they need is to explain what they need to do at this point and where they should look. So you may want to disable this user, access their record here. And over here under advanced options, we can insert a form link and we can take the user right to the person's cover page. I think that's where we would take them. And you might say at this point, like, to disable, right? In case this is a new person, they don't remember, right? There's always, after some years, could be turnover of your full admins. Having this established already as someone who knows exactly what to do in preparation for people following in their footsteps, super helpful. And you can always connect to a help guide too, right? So those help guides, no guarantee always that they'll always be there. We definitely do cleanup. But we will, like, things like this will always be there, right? To disable, follow instructions here, right? Something easy that they can follow and do. So that's established, okay? So now on the auto action side, I'm going to create a new auto action. And I'm going to do a disable user. And I'm actually going to execute this more than once per record because I wanted to like check regularly, like, does this need to be done? And what you might do is like, this is definitely going to be on a schedule. And as I'm thinking this through, like, I think I actually might want this to just be done monthly. And maybe on like, I don't know, the 20th, 25th, I don't know, something like that, like kind of mid-month. Obviously stuff can happen toward the end of the month, but towards the end of the month, but maybe not on the last day, because like everything's due on the last day of every month. Just having something to just check in, right? Because of course should be going back in some time period. So once a month, checking. And because I mentioned you could give someone access, take it away, and give it back to them, right? There could be this kind of back and forth for some people. So having it execute more than once will have it continuously check. It won't say, oh, this person was checked once and then never go back and do it again. Or this email triggered for them once and it won't go and do it again. If it happens again that they haven't logged in some months and they still have access, then it would resend an email. So this is going to be on user stats. Right, so that's that table that tells us the last login date. And we're going to say when the user stats last login date is, this is where you can say over 2 months in the past, or 1 month in the past, or 2 weeks in the, whatever it is that's going to make most sense for your team. I would also say that I think I want to put in here that the person login enabled equals yes, right? Like we don't really care about this if their login is disabled. We only care if they still have a login. Save. We're going to send an email, send it to the specific person. And at this point, we're going to be choosing that we're sending an email. And we're going to choose the template type. And it's going to be this notify full admin. I'm going to send it then right over here to myself as the full admin of this site. So I don't need to choose anybody on the person record. I just need to choose who is the full admin at the time, and probably just that email or a group of email addresses. Once I press save, I think then my last step is how's it going to go out? Right? Is it going to be just done automatically? Is somebody going to confirm it? I think in this case, it's just let it run as it should. And this will go out. And so Sam is already notifying me there's 10 folks that I'm going to get 10 emails on, actually on my birthday this month. And so I'm going to disable this as soon as this webinar stops because I don't want all those emails. But this is how it will be set up. Should you need any help, you're always going to be able to refer back to this webinar, but you could also ask for support through the support link to set that up. That's what I have for you guys today. Let me go back to my webinar here and double check that I've covered everything. I think there's a couple things else that I want to say, right? So this was the alert that we just created is kind of making sure there's an auto action for that happening in your site. Wanted to let you know that you're all invited to SAM training. So only one email's been sent out about it, and we'll do some more follow-up communications. But in February, the first week of February, we're going to hold SAM training here in Portland, Oregon. And we're really going to work together for a couple days on setting up client portals, public forms, making sure it's like pulled together and snazzy. And then I think what I want to do for day 2 of that is, besides continue the setup, because it takes some time and there's a lot of questions and a lot of considerations to think about, is then talking about styling it, testing it, but then also setting you up with some documentation, thinking about your workflow, and so that your team knows how to use this. So also adopting the new process that you're building with the client portal for your team. If you want to register for that, you can register online through our events link. You'll see it there, as well as all of the other webinars that are available available and up and coming over the next month. And so with that, I thank you very much. Next month, we'll talk about report stats on February 12th. same time at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and you can see that through all of our webinars that have been recorded through the webinars link on our website.